Hello, and welcome to That Does Not Belong to Me. This is episode 40. I am so excited to be here with my new friend, Gabby. Hi, Gabby. How are you?
Hi, it's such a pleasure to be here. I'm so good to see your beautiful face.
Aw, you too. And I was saying before jumping on that it's new that I'm putting the episodes on YouTube, but and I didn't warn Gabby, and I know some people are like, oh no, I didn't dress for like I thought it was just an audio recording, and I was like, I don't know Gabby well, but I just feel like she always looks so great. So I didn't think you would mind, and you look
That's
great.
such a beautiful compliment. Thank you. And I love that. I love listening to podcasts, but I also love getting a glimpse behind the scenes over the person who's talking, right? So feel free to check us out on
Yeah.
Instagram and our site.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah. And sometimes there's certain things with like facial expressions, or I feel like there's moments where you're listening to podcasts and it's like, I wish you guys could see us now, like, because there's something going on in the room, you know? So I say that we're friends, but we've never met in person. You live in Connecticut. We've connected through our mutual friend, Katie Braja, who I miss dearly. I used to be in her relaxation club, and she's a beautiful like meditation teacher, and she's taken maybe a little bit of a pause and all of that, but I'm just so glad that she's connected us.
Me too. She's a magical person, and she has opened this online community for me over connecting to like-minded spiritual women like us. And I just feel like I know you a little bit, so I'm so excited to have this pocket of time to dive deeper.
Yes. So I interview female entrepreneurs. Would you consider yourself a female entrepreneur?
Yes.
I just
Yes.
assumed, but I think you are. You work for yourself. And what do you do, Gabby? Let's fill everyone in.
I'm a therapist. So for a long while, my identity has been therapist. And only recently, 2 years ago, I embraced also I am actually also a businesswoman. This is a business, right? Not
Yeah.
just the service, which I think for yoga people and healers, this happens a lot. So this is a good time to talk about this for me. 2 years ago, I started my journey over actually embracing this entrepreneur and building a business that is in alignment with my heart and what I've always done. So, what I've always done is I'm a clinical psychologist. I work with people around healing, fulfillment, right? I started just working with trauma, kind of as a generalist, as lots of therapists do. But I think that the specialty that we choose says a lot about us
Mm.
unknowingly, right? Because when I was in psychology school, I was really, really drawn to relationships and marriage and family therapy,
Mm.
which makes perfect sense. If I take you back on my story, I grew up in Guatemala. My mom is American and my dad is from Guatemala, and we grew up there. They moved and we grew up there. And so I always had this bicultural two worlds as my parents. It was always this kind of melting pot of traditions, but it was never really blended through my parents. I had like my mom's world, her family, her traditions, and my dad's world, his family, his traditions. And I, from a very young age, could see that they were not bringing their two worlds together. They
Mm.
had a lot of just misunderstanding, clashes in values, personality differences that even while they loved each other very much, this caused so much friction in their
Mm.
relationship.
Are they still together?
No,
Okay.
no. So they
Mhm.
s- they had a lot of distance, which is sad, right? Like as I remember back, it wasn't, there were moments of conflict and fights, but it wasn't chaos. It was more distance, stillness emotionally, lack of fulfillment. That's kind of like the energy that I remember. I don't remember a lot of glimpses over what would happen between them. I just remember like me, 5, 7 years old, the environment was gray, right? Like
Mm.
the energy between them, which is kind of like the language that I speak because I didn't have any words. I would just see like distance, disconnect,
Mm.
right?
Do you have
When
siblings?
I am the middle child,
Okay.
we are three sisters.
Oh, we are three
Yeah.
sisters too. I am the youngest.
Ah,
It's a whole other
But
topic, like a whole other episode
yeah,
on
that's a whole, so
siblings
textbook,
and
right? I'm a textbook middle
middle
child. I'm,
child.
I'm the
Okay.
cycle breaker. I'm the mediator. I'm the therapist, of
Okay.
course. I was also really protected and sheltered by my older sister. So she
Mm.
saw a lot of the drama between my parents and would just distract me, play with me, shelter me. Like she
Oh, that's
carried a
nice.
lot of that burden. She has more memories than me,
Yeah.
which of course we've done a lot of healing. We actually had the same therapist separately. We did individual therapy with the same therapist in Guatemala, which was really beautiful because then she got a more holistic view into our
Yeah.
family as she worked with us individually. Like she, of course, never
Right.
shared. We
Of
never
course.
even did a
Yeah.
session together, which now I'm thinking like we could.
That would have been neat.
But yeah, and my sister still goes with her, so that's like something that we're healing ongoing. But back to my parents, they had a lot of distance between them. There was just a lot of drama when I
Mm.
remember the relationship. And ever since I was like 12, 13 years old, there was more separation. They officially got separated when I was 15
Okay.
years old. And what followed was this ongoing getting back together, separation, going to court, not settling anything. And I'll tell you everything when I say I was 15, now I'm 32,
Hmm.
and they are not yet, they're not divorced yet.
No way. Wow.
Yeah,
Wow. What a wild ride. Because they don't
it's been
want to
wild.
be, because it's just too complicated with paperwork stuff, or all the emotional attachment stuff, or all of
Both,
it.
both. So
Everything.
codependency, Latino family, this is everyone knows codependency, but Latino families, it's a whole other level. Like I hear sometimes like Jewish families, and I think
Yeah.
maybe we all have that, right? But for us, it's like it's a lot of codependency between them. It's also a lot of, they're both very avoidant. So it's
Mm.
procrastination. It's like, I don't want to see this because it's so heavy and it's hard and it's painful and uncomfortable. So I'm just like compartmentalizing,
Yeah.
right? And putting it beside. And then also they did go to lawyers and were ready to go have a separation. They couldn't agree. They both have assets that they kind of double down on and started this attack fight, which hurt them a lot. And so now they're at this place where they're kind of at fragile peace, right? Because it's not
Mm.
real peace. And I think they don't want to open that up again. So it's just this big thing that was really painful for like 8 years because of the lack of closure and the ongoing tension that me and then my sister followed suit, and my younger sister just started like, I think I can't take all the credit, but I created this ripple effect over like, I'm going to find my peace with this on my own, because I was
Yeah.
waiting for them to, right? It's like, oh, when they do it, it'll be closure, we'll start a new kind of
Yeah.
arrangement, and it just never happened,
Yeah. You can't
right?
wait at a certain point, eh?
No,
So what was
no.
your first, like, having that experience growing up and even looking back now, like when you started to get into relationships yourself, do you
Yeah.
feel like you brought some of that, or were you like, I'm not going anywhere near a relationship like that? Or were you like, when we're starting out relationships, we're not necessarily thinking in that way. So we're just
Yeah,
meeting people and, trying things out. But
I dove deep. Like I didn't have the understanding, but I created this, like I started getting obsessed with relationships, like we all do, but from an intellectual, psychological, like I went to
okay.
clinical psychology. I started to really question what makes a relationship work? How can I avoid such chaos and conflict in a relationship? How can I protect my heart?
Did you know you
But
wanted to go
initially,
into that? Like, did
I
you?
knew I knew about the third year of clinical psychology. It was 5 years
Yeah.
at college, and the third year I had, like I knew I wanted to, but I just couldn't see how. And then
Yeah.
I had my first couples class, and then I saw the path a little more clearly, and I thought, okay, couples therapy is for me.
Mm,
And then, but initially it was from a fear-based place over, this is so horrible and so painful, and I don't want to have a marriage like this. And
mm,
so I started guarding my heart. And looking back now, I realized I got really protective. I was keeping relationships like an arm's length. I didn't have a steady boyfriend in college. I didn't
Mm.
have a serious
When
relationship. I
people
was
would
the
find out what you were
single friend.
studying. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, and also people ask, and it's like, are you psychoanalyzing me? And then
Yeah, I was gonna say,
I,
so that fear.
this is, I joke that therapist is my personality because I was always like this.
Right.
It's
Whether you had
not like
studied
I
it or
went
not.
to school and then
Uh-huh.
I'm asked questions. No, I'm all like, I was always like this.
Okay.
I like deep talk. I am kind of intuitive. So I also like, I feel like I can really see you,
Yeah.
which is beautiful or confronting,
Hmm.
right? So I
Hmm.
had a lot of men just kind of like feel very um not ready for that depth in relationship. I was also using kind of hiding my true desires because I was really trying to play it safe, keeping someone like one foot in, one foot out. I was really focused on my career and my health and my well-being. So first it was school, then it was like my career, then it was work, then it
Mm.
was money. Those were my priorities. And now realizing what was happening is I had this thought over I might never get married because marriages are so painful and it was so chaotic. And you know, that unconscious thought that it's like, oh, the marriage that my parents had, that is the way that it has to be.
Hmm.
Like you can't really, trauma does that to you.
Yeah, because
It
even if you can logically say, I know it doesn't need to be like
exactly.
that, deep down in your soul, you are feeling that that's how it's going to be.
Exactly. Trauma cuts you off from creativity and possibilities and just
Mm.
like, oh, there's other kinds of like it could be whatever, right? It was like I can see other couples, but in my depth of
Mm.
my heart and my mind, my unconscious mind, it was like, oh no, shit hits the fan. This is so much pressure.
Yeah.
And so I
Yeah.
was not, yeah. And so I was also emotionally unavailable, even though I was really open with my emotions sometimes and like mature intellectually. And I was also, 23,
Yeah,
25. Like
right.
you have no idea. You think you've got it figured out. You have no idea about life, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And so I was the fun single friend. Like I love that phase of my life because I
Yeah.
was the friend that was single and would go with you and was the one woman and would
Yeah.
like console my friends when they were crying and give them advice and watching all the drama of college relationships back and forth
And you're like,
without
thank
being in one.
goodness, avoiding
Yeah,
that.
that would also confirm that, oh, no, it's too much drama for me, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So you are currently married, right?
Yes. So
Okay.
when I never had a relationship go on for more than 3 months.
Hmm.
I had a lot of casual, like we're dating for 3 months, really happy, never defining the
The
relationship
three
kind of
months is kind of
thing.
the mark, eh? Where I feel like I
Yeah,
remember that in the past too, where it was like, okay, is it going to become something? Otherwise, like, we're done now kind of thing. I feel
we're
like the
done.
3 months is the time. I
Yeah,
don't
either
know.
you move forward and no,
Yeah.
we're done, right? And when I was 24, I met my now husband. And that was a total switch. We met and he was just very clear
Mm,
that I was 24, he was 31.
okay.
So he was hitting this phase of his life where he had fulfilled his like biggest career moves. He was climbing the corporate ladder. He
Mm.
was living on his own already. He had started his life over like really taking responsibility. He
Like
had
a real
left
grown up.
his like a grown up, like a grown up.
That's attractive.
Yeah. Yeah, it was really attractive for me. I was like, oh, he has this beautiful, he had it decorated, his apartment, he had his routine. He would run in the afternoon, so he had his time blocked, really like
Wow.
grounded, masculine, mature
Mm,
energy.
nice.
And he's a Taurus, so he's also really grounded
Mm,
and structured and stubborn and he knows what he wants, right? And we met and he told me, oh, like I want to take you out next Saturday, and he asked for my number and we had like a great connection. And I remember walking away thinking, who knows, like he might
yeah.
text tomorrow? He would never text. Like
Yeah.
that's the phase of life that I was in. And I think just because I was so surrender, like it could be whatever, there was no attachment. He also felt that and he doubled down on, no,
Right.
this is happening, right? Because I was like, and that was part of my protection mechanism. Also, like, I have no expectations,
Right.
but I liked him, right?
Hmm.
So I wouldn't let my heart get hopeful. That's kind of how I
Mm,
navigated, right? And then he just wrote to me next day. He said, I want to take you out next Saturday because it was like a Sunday.
mm,
And then he just texted me every day. And
amazing.
we've talked ever since, right?
Right.
And then he did this great thing over dating, over like he had foresight. He would make a plan, then plan like dinner, and then I'll take you for cocktails, and then I take you home, and then I'll see you tomorrow, and then like I'll see you next week, and I'll write every day. And it's just like without it being pressure, it was
Okay.
just consistency.
Hmm.
This kind of like I'm here, and
Yeah.
then we would have the week apart. We would see each other the weekends, and it just like built on that
That's how I felt when I
gradually.
met my husband, like 6 years ago in March, actually. But yeah, it was like there's this ease to it where, and it's like that's different than boring, right? But it just felt
Yes.
like, oh, like a deep exhale where it's like, oh, this is really nice. And then it got nicer and nicer, you know? But
Yeah.
yeah, that's how I feel like it can be, because otherwise we often think it needs to maybe be these like games or this huge like explosion immediately, or and it's like it's not always the case, and if anything you just want to feel like you can ultimately be yourself. And I feel like in my past like dating, I was single for like 6 years before that, and I really felt like when I was dating someone that I was really interested in, I wasn't myself, right? Like I was, you're just trying, you don't know what the hell you're doing. And then when I didn't care so much about the person, I was like fully like whatever. And then they really liked me because I was like whatever. But with Duncan, it felt like, I don't know, somehow a mix of that, where I was like still wanting to impress him and try, but also comfortable enough to like be like, whatever, this is me, you know?
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Yeah, it's like you're gradually showing more of yourself, but you're still kind of doing the dance over
Yeah.
because dating has this low grade panic, right?
Yes.
Over like, are they gonna
Constant.
write? Do they like me? Did this go well? I'll share something about myself and see if they can take
Yeah.
it, see how they react, see if they can
Yeah.
hold my emotions, see if they also share, right? Um, see
It's
if
so
they
much
accept
work.
me.
It's so much work and it's so much energy. And I used to go through periods of like online dating, and I would do like a month where I was going on a date, or sometimes two, like every week. And then the next month I'd be like, no more, delete the apps. Like I need a break. But then I would be like, okay, let me try again. I was always hopeful. I got discouraged for sure sometimes, but I was always hopeful. And I kind of lived with this underlying excitement, which I feel like I still try to live like in other ways now, not towards like finding the love of my life. I'm like, cool, I got that. So what other things can I be excited about? But, I have a friend now who's single, or like a few anyways, but like, yeah, just kind of trying to, and I know it's easier said than done sometimes because it can feel discouraging, especially like where we live, where my friend is, it's in a small town. There's literally just like the numbers game is like, so it's hard not to be like, where is anybody? Not just where is
Oh,
he?
wow.
It's like, so yeah. But anyways, just living with that sense of excitement and of like, it could be today. It could be today.
Exactly. I always tell my clients that when you feel like you've been stuck in the waiting game and the anxiety and the looking, you gotta just take a step back and go live your life.
Yeah.
Go fall in love with your life. Go get excited about your friendships or your afternoon
Mm,
or your self-care, right? Because that is what actually lets you create this excitement and be magnetic and the people will come,
yeah.
right? But I
100%.
also agree, it's like that's the truth, but it's the most infuriating piece of advice to
I
receive.
know.
It is harder. It's so much harder
It's
said
like
than
just
done,
lean
but
back
it's
and that's when they'll come. Stop trying so hard. And that I remember hearing that and being like, if I'm not trying and I'm just sitting on the couch, they're not gonna come. Like they're just that's not, you have to actually put some effort too. So there's that, yeah, and that's
such
not what
a
you were saying,
balance.
but yeah, just finding
I
that
agree. I
balance. Yeah.
agree. It's the leaning back, but then also the creating the pathways, right?
Yeah, that's
No
right.
one is going to come knocking on my door other than the pizza delivery guy, right? Like
Which you
It's
never
like,
know.
which could be, right? I also believe that it could be anyone. Like
Yeah.
it could be, I went to Target once and a really cute guy hit me.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, like if I was dating, it's true. And that helps me, right? To be with my clients, like they are everywhere.
Yes, exactly, exactly. It could be anywhere. Um, yeah, I forget what I was gonna say. It just got me thinking. Anyways, I can't remember. Okay, so you did this whole journey of like right into psychology, basically. You knew that that's what you wanted to do.
Yeah.
And then you found your partner, and that's who you've been with. It's funny because so Gabby's a generator. I usually pop that in a little earlier, but with an emotional authority. So generally the generator path, and most people I speak to, especially entrepreneurs, have had this kind of like windy journey. But I think we could even
Mhm.
probably look at your journey and it's definitely like windy to a certain extent, whether that be obviously like in your relationships or, you know, even in your schooling, let's say, where you weren't sure exactly which direction you wanted to head right away. And like even now, you might not coach relationships or do relationships your whole life, right? Like, you know, there is that opportunity to like, if this isn't exciting you anymore, to change directions, to change your mind.
Yeah, I love that. My path has definitely been windy. When I met my partner, I was working in human resources as I was completing my master's degree. And I was ready to be a therapist. That is my dream. That's what I wanted. And ever since then, my dad wanted me to be an engineer or something corporate, right? So I remember the first generator hit, which makes sense now to me because I never knew that, is I took myself to the college that I wanted to go and applied alone.
Mm.
And it's sad now, but I remember that my dad took me to this college he wanted me to go. He wanted me to be an engineer. And then I felt like I know really clearly what I want, which is crazy to me because in 12th grade, you have no idea about your life and your future. And I was so clear, like
That's so
intuitively, I
cool.
was so clear. It was like psychology. And my dad would say like that he was worried about me making money and like that's so risky. And he's also very like intellectual, masculine,
Hmm.
Latino, right? Like that was no one in my family has ever gone to therapy. That was like if I had said like I'll be a yoga healer or something, like he was just like, what the hell? And so I just decided it was psychology. But once I was completing psychology, I also got really scared over like doing my own private practice thing. So I started working in human resources as a kind of bridge to that. And I met my partner, and he gave me the chance to really start over in like a clean slate because he got a job offer. Well, not a job offer. In his same company, he got an expat offer to
Mm.
go to Mexico for a assignment as an expat for 2 years.
So you
And we
went.
had only been dating for 6 months. We did not live
Wow.
together. And we took it together
Cool.
to jump. We moved from Guatemala to Mexico together, moved in together, left our family and friends, and doubled down on this is something we want to give a chance to. We
Cool.
also do both want to live a life of adventure. Like I was so open to living outside in another country, moving around. He was too. And we just kind of like met the person that wanted that too and became this
Amazing.
partner in crime, right? So we moved to Mexico, and that gave me a chance out of like, I can take a human resource job that is not what is in alignment. And it was actually sucking my soul. I
Yeah.
was so miserable, so
Drained.
miserable, drained. I was unhappy. I remember I would get up and like, no makeup, put whatever on, go to
Mm.
work.
That
Like,
says a lot.
yeah,
Hmm.
yeah, yeah. And he met me like that. And now I'm like, oh my God, I'm so glad that you saw me because that
Yeah.
was not my best self at all.
Yeah.
Like I'm a
That's
different
amazing.
person.
Right.
And in Mexico, I started my private practice kind of from scratch and just hustling because it was like such a big opportunity over like, I'll get this chance. It
Mm.
was really scary, but I had his support because I don't know if I would have been able to do it
Right.
alone. And in Mexico, I found yoga.
Mm.
And so I went to my first class, and that was really the connection over the healing mind body that I had been missing in therapy. And
Mm.
I felt it first for myself, like in Shavasana, the first class, and this days of
Did you
like,
cry?
yes.
Yeah.
And
Everyone,
also like, what is this? Right? Like, what
yeah.
just happened?
It's such great
Yeah,
therapy. I know
it
therapy is good
is.
therapy, obviously, but like yoga is such a great add-on.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. And so I became a yoga teacher,
Oh,
which
amazing.
I loved. And then I started teaching yoga, and I found this blend over like yoga and therapy. And I was still kind
Mm.
of working with trauma. I started completing my couples therapy training. I do emotionally focused couples therapy. And 2 years in Mexico became 3, which
Hmm.
we loved. And I really felt like maybe we would stay there because I was thriving.
Uh,
I felt at home. It's like so weird when people say that. I had no family. I hadn't been there before. I moved there,
where
and
in
some part
Mexico?
of it's called Toluca. It's right
Okay.
outside Mexico City, so
Okay.
like 50 minutes away,
Hmm.
kind of like how New York and Connecticut are, because we
Mm.
would go to Mexico City, do all the things, go to
Okay.
the theater, bars, and then we would come back and live in this like smaller, like nice place to live kind of.
Cool.
Yeah. And that was beautiful. And I kind of feel like there's a part of my soul that came alive. And I know that we will probably 5 to 10 years retire from corporate life for my husband and move back to Mexico,
Mm.
because the something in the culture and the life of that place just is more us,
Yeah.
and for me specifically more me.
So what brought you to
Is it,
Connecticut in the end?
and so 3 years there, he got another offer for a promotion here. The headquarters of his job are in Connecticut,
Okay.
and so we came for his same job in the same company, right? A promotion,
Hmm.
4 years ago.
Okay, so you've been there 4 years.
So
Do you
here has
like
been the
it? How
place
has
where
that
we've been the
been for
most.
you?
It was also whitey path
Yeah,
because
okay.
we came here winter. So it was October 2018, and it was beautiful. It was a conscious choice. We did pros and cons. We make really, really conscious, like financial list, the communication dates for months. We had to go see, we came, we saw, we went around the place. We had a realtor show us around. Then we went back to Mexico. Then we made the decision. So it's
Mm,
really thought out, but there's so many things you don't know, right?
yeah.
And that also just hit with my partner. There was a perfect storm of work stress, financial pressure. Life is more expensive here. I was relocating, and he shut down emotionally. He was like, work, work, work. And then he would come home. He was drained. He
Mm,
was going through a lot of pressure that he didn't share with me. So this is the before, right
okay.
before we got married. I started to notice there was this disconnect. He would just not share. He was getting like emotionally numbed out because he would just come home in the classic, like, I had a hard day. I don't want to talk about it. But he
Hmm.
was out of it, right? So it's this weird, I know women know, right? Nothing is really happening, but he's not present.
Yeah, totally.
You start freaking the hell out. I felt alone. I had also just moved. I didn't have a lot of clients. I was in this in between over Mexico and here.
Yeah.
I didn't have a lot of friends either. He was not here for me, with me, and it was winter,
Mm,
literally winter,
mm.
and winter in our relationship. So April next year, we had like our biggest crisis. I put my foot down. He wasn't ready to go to therapy. He was kind of like in denial that there was actually a problem, but because
Okay.
he was so overwhelmed, right? Now I can see, and I think, poor guy, right? But in
Yeah.
that moment, it's just like, I'm not available to be in a relationship. And far from my family and far from my country.
Yeah.
Like for
Has to
that,
be
I'm
friggin'
just
worth it, eh?
exactly. It has to
Yeah.
be better, like the
Yeah.
same or better, right?
Yeah.
So I broke up with him and I left and I moved back to Guatemala. And what
Oh,
followed was 3 months, no contact, right? A whole separation, a breakup, not a break, as
wow.
Ross would say in
Yeah.
Friends, right? A breakup. And then I found out that like I left, and the next day he started therapy and started going twice a week
Wow.
for 6 months. He stopped drinking alcohol. he stopped, like he started working out.
Mm,
Like those things weren't a big problem. It wasn't that he didn't work out, or it wasn't that he had an alcohol problem, right?
right.
He just suddenly, it was like reset on my
Sometimes it's
health.
those smallest adjustments, though. I mean, they are kind of big,
Exactly.
obviously, like they take, effort to put into your life, but yeah, they make such a big impact
Yeah.
on you, like deeply who you are, how
Yes.
you show up.
And so the biggest thing for him, it was finally facing his own childhood, the trauma that we all have, right? Like
Mm,
had this beautiful therapist who just helped him make sense
mm,
of the things that happened to us in childhood that seem like parents were just working, they weren't really there, but nothing horrible happened, into, oh yeah, this was, emotions were not normalized, I'm actually numbing out, I don't have a lot of
mm.
language, especially as a Latino man, or any man, right,
Yeah.
that is so disconnected from emotions. And it just opened him up to having the language, talking, sharing with me, right? Which is like, I always say that it's like I'm a different person than who I was, but he's also a different
Right.
person.
Yeah.
And now it's like he did it kind of for me at the beginning because he wanted to get me back, but then it became this journey for him of self-discovery,
Mm,
because it was really like it could have gone either way. I could
yeah.
have moved on and just like I would be in Guatemala and he would be here or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
and he would have been okay,
Mm-hmm.
is the biggest thing. Because at the end, he, like what he says now is that I gave him a new life,
Mm.
basically.
That's so nice. He had to do
Yeah,
it though too, eh? Like so as
he
much
had
as
to
it's nice
do
he
it.
gave you credit, it's like that's him. That's
Yeah.
huge because not a lot of guys will do that. And also
Yeah.
like a friend who just went up through a breakup and it was a messy one. He was cheating on her and he was like, I'll go to therapy, I'll do those things. But it was really for the pure reason of getting her back or approving, which is not like it just can't be. And I get that that can be a part of the reason or
Yeah.
you're pushed to do it or whatever, but it's not going to work, right? Like the impact won't be there if it's for something outside of you.
No, no. And at the end, when I said like I'm leaving, which is so hard because you don't threaten these things, right? It was like I had to go within, and it was like 2 months of my hermit phase. I
Mm.
remember I even did a tarot session with our friend Katie Braja, and I
Oh,
was just
nice.
like, I'm getting ready. I'm this thing that women we do, right? It's like I'm getting my energy behind my decision. I'm saying nothing until I finally say it. The decision is made. There's nothing you
There's
can
no
do,
turning back. Yeah.
right? And he was like, why didn't you say it before? And I was like, I said it.
Yeah,
I
that's the
said it.
thing.
I did
That's
say it. Like, go to couples therapy the first time your partner asks, right?
yes.
Pay attention to the feedback the first time that someone speaks up, right? Like,
Yeah.
listen, because I said it.
Yeah, it's often not it's heard, but it's not heard, right? Like it's not
Yeah.
yeah, it's not
And
taken
I wasn't
seriously.
that clear, right? It wasn't
That
like, oh,
too.
this, but you're like drowning out calling for help. Like you gotta be like, hey babe, what is happening?
Yeah.
Ask better questions if you don't
Yes.
understand.
And you
Like,
look, right? You like see
yeah,
what's going on around you. But it's
yeah,
hard, I guess, when you're in like a place of just like drowning yourself that,
yeah.
yeah, it's so messy and complicated. But I'm glad so things then you decided to like give it another shot and you
Yeah.
got
And
married.
then we had talked about getting married before because I'm an American citizen and he didn't have a
Okay.
green card, right? He had a work permit. And then that's part of why I got freaked out. I also realized like I cannot marry this man while we have this disconnect. We would have to work through our issues so that I could get married, because that's also my biggest fear over being married and having that kind of
Mm,
marriage and divorce and just the torture that I got to saw. So
yeah.
that was also closing a lot of full circle loops and closure for me, because the good thing about my parents is that they allowed me to see the future and learn from their mistakes of what happens, right, if you don't
Hmm.
get the help and you don't
Yeah.
fix it. And
Yeah.
so instead of feeling the dread over like, oh my God, that's going to happen to me, I really took agency so that I could correct what they couldn't, right? And like,
Hmm.
I'm going to get the help and I'm going to get the healing and I'm going to do it differently so that the same thing doesn't happen to me. And that for
Mm,
me was liberation, because that's when you become the creator of of your patterns and the co-creator of your reality, instead of like the
Hmm.
doom over like, I'm just going to repeat these patterns.
Yeah. Yeah. That's just how it's going to work. That's how it has to go. What do you
Yeah.
think for you personally, like what did marriage bring to your partnership that if you had just stayed together as a happy
Yeah.
couple, like that you might not have had or
So I love, I'm really deep into depth connection, right? So I think partnership and commitment is really sexy to me. He has always been super committed and loyal. And as I said, consistent.
mm,
So I felt we were already committed. We had been together for 6 years,
hmm.
moved 3 different countries, right? So it wasn't anything drastically extra. Honestly, we could have taken or leave,
Yeah.
but we had this situation where he was feeling stuck in his job tied to a work visa. So at first, it started off more because of the practical green card. That's the biggest reason. But as we did that, it became more symbolic over
Mm,
like, wow, this is actually giving us more freedom. This is actually the representation of being a partnership and a team, and really like you and me together legally and financially and
yeah.
geographically, right?
Yeah.
So it really did make us much stronger. I think for me, it was also facing some fears around marriage, knowing that I was going in with the full ease and relief of like, oh, we're ready
Yeah.
now. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was
I,
beautiful for our relationship. But I think for me, it was also like, oh, I'm actually giving marriage a new meaning. That's even
Yeah.
stronger for
And I think
me.
that's why I asked like specifically for you because yeah, it's going to be different for everyone. And I remember my
Yeah.
sister saying at one point before I was married, but just kind of her thoughts on it. She was married, had 3 kids, and I guess they were having like a rough patch. And I think she was like looking back on that rough patch period and saying like, I mean, kids obviously to me is like the anchor. Like that's the thing that's like making it like you better make this work. Or if it's not working, then like you have to figure out a good, anyways, a different thing. But she was like, we would have given up sooner. Like it was kind of this like it's this extra little like, and not just because a divorce is hard and messy and expensive. Like yes, but it's this bigger like something like bond or whatever you want to call it, but that makes you like, and this might be different for everyone. Like someone might be in a relationship without the paperwork and be like, no, we're going to try right till the very end. So, but I just kind of
Mhm.
clicked with me when she said that it is kind of that just, it makes you try a little harder to make sure
Yeah.
that. And then also on that note too, just curious your thoughts on like how hard should a couple try before, because I've also talked to other like friends or whatever in relationship and you're like, are you happy? Like, and I
Yeah.
really think like, and even if you have kids and even if you're married, at what point do you say, you know what, my happiness is more valuable than this family unit that we're trying to keep together for whatever logical reasons?
Yeah. That's such a good question. And it's so complex. I
Yeah.
think that how hard do you try? You try the communicating and the sharing what's real before you give up, right?
Hmm.
Because I hear all the time people say like, oh yes, I told him, but you haven't been as clear as you could.
No.
I know I felt I was being super clear. And now looking back, poor guy, like I would say things like, I'm just feeling alone. And he was like, what do you mean? Like I'm here. We're spending every weekend together, right? Like I'm working so hard. And then I didn't have the language
Yeah.
over like,
Hmm.
I could have said, okay, you know what, we'll sit down this Friday and we'll talk about this and prioritize some time together. And I booked a session with a therapist and
Yeah.
I would like some help. And like, I need this. Like, I could have just been a little more clear and not even like putting my foot down, just like, hey, this is a problem.
Mm.
Like saying this is a problem. And
I
then
would,
also sharing more vulnerably. I think that's something that you have to do. I would say even like have an individual session or someone to help you and then say that, because our protection is, we, especially women, are really tentative over like
We don't want
Oh,
to
we
be a
haven't.
nag. We don't
Yeah.
want to be a bitch. We don't want to be
Yeah.
always repeating the
Yes.
same things. And I
Yes.
realized I had that conversation with my other sister yesterday where like, I realize, and I'm a truthful person and I feel very comfortable in my relationship. Like, he makes me feel very safe. I've been in relationships before where there's just like anything that you say is just pushed back, or
Mhm.
it's not met well, whereas here I
Mhm.
feel safe and I still feel like I don't fully express. And my sister, she calls it what does she call it, like couple crisis management or something like that, a marriage crisis management, or but and it's going so well. They had never done this before. But she said that created the space for her to feel safe to say the thing. And
Yeah.
before she went to, I was hanging out with her before she went, and she was like, he talks so much in the morning. Like, he talks so much in the morning. And she was like, okay, that's what I'm going to bring up. Like, she's like, I just need my quiet in the morning. But silly things like that too, where we think maybe we're expressing it by this expression on our face that's like this when they're talking. And they're like, how do you not understand that? How do they not see it? And it's like, it's still not clear. So maybe there has to be a clearer way, right? To say what you
Yes.
need.
And that's a rule. I think that is safe. Like there are a few things in relationship that are rule, like universal, but I'm sure women, this is just our problem. For you listener, you are not being so clear. You think you
Hmm.
are. I know I thought. I was like, this is obvious. What is wrong with this guy? Like, because you tell your friends, girlfriends, and they know exactly what you mean.
Yeah. Yeah. So you're like, it seems obvious, right?
It
Because you're like,
seems so
everyone gets
obvious.
it.
And I'm like, he
Yeah.
came home late. We haven't had time together. Oh, yeah. Quality time is so important. We're just watching TV and they know exactly what you
Yeah.
mean.
Yeah.
And there is this disconnect. You're just wired to miss each other, especially women and men, but it could be anyone, right? Especially around your attachment styles, which I speak
Mm,
about a lot. You are wired to miss each other. So it's not obvious and you are not being so clear. So you are also tiptoeing around the issues because you're protecting yourself. You don't want to be rejected. The
hmm.
most horrible feeling in the world is sharing a piece of my heart and having my partner be cold or unresponsive. It feels
Mm,
like, uh, I'm crushed. This part of
mm.
my heart that I so vulnerably shared was not received.
Or the other thing that can happen is you feel heard in that moment and seen in that moment, but then the action isn't taken.
Yeah.
And then you're like, well, I wasn't really seen then, or
Yeah.
I was,
And then you
right?
feel like I said it, he got it, and he didn't do it. So he's not
Yes.
capable, and this is not the relationship. And he's just not capable.
Yeah.
And we start creating this story over like, oh, they can't. And I agree because I really thought, and I'm a therapist, I'm trauma trained, and I was so in it that I just really thought, okay, he is unwilling or he is incapable. I'm not sure. It's not my problem, right? He can
Hmm.
figure it out. I am done pushing and I
My,
stand by my decision. But looking back, I would never do it differently. This is a path and we are much
yeah.
stronger because of it. But I help people who are in that crisis now because it doesn't have to be so radical. I mean,
Right.
you shouldn't have to leave. I had to move internationally and then come
Yeah.
back right alone. So yeah, this
No,
could be
that's
the path, but
huge.
it's not necessarily so
Yeah.
radical for it. And I want to help you do it
Yeah.
smarter. Right?
Less travel expenses.
Yeah.
My
So I
biggest
would
fear was,
say be more clear. I would also
yeah.
say um get support if it because you just are if you're spinning in circles, get support.
Hmm.
And then when should you leave is if the other person is really not willing, not because you haven't brought it up because they are saying no and they are free to decide,
Hmm.
or something that I really trust in women. I work also with your intuition, and there's this inner
Mm.
knowing. So when is it like you should stop trying? When you know, like you know something inside you, and that
Yeah.
inner knowing is just saying, this is not it.
And you'll
This is
know.
not it. And you'll know. And
Yeah.
you might know and be scared of it.
Yeah.
So you might say, I don't know. I'm not sure, Gabby. Like, oh, how do you know?
And then
That's
stay
okay.
longer. Yeah.
Right.
Hmm.
Just know that for me, it was the hermit phase was I know and I don't know what the fuck to do. Like,
Yeah.
it's like,
So just
what the
taking a
hell am
step
I going to
back.
do?
Yeah.
So I was like, I changed the language into, I know I have to leave. I'm not sure how to do it and it's really scaring me.
Or what the next step is after that,
Yeah.
or yeah.
Or I know I have to leave, but I'm not ready to.
Mm-hmm.
Because what I like, language is really important. And what was really disempowering for me is the I don't know, I don't know, I don't know. And then finally, I just confronted myself and I was like, Gabby, saying you don't know is really disempowering because it makes you feel lost and you're really clear, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's okay that you know and that you're not ready to do anything. And that
Yes.
allowed me a space. So that
Yeah.
I would go to yoga. I would cry at the yoga
Mm.
studio. I would come back. I would be like alone. I didn't talk about it much. I was just kind of like preparing my energy for this big move, right? And then I moved into I'm starting to make the moves and I told my family and I told my sister, but I'm not ready, right? And
Mm-hmm.
then it's like, okay, now I'm leaving, right?
Yeah.
So it's like you
In
can move in these
stages.
phases too. Yeah.
Yeah. What I was going to say before, just kind of backtracking a bit, is like one of my bigger fears, which I've like stepped into on occasion, is indifference, where, it's like you feel like you've tried or you feel like you've said the things and then you're like, I'm just not going to care anymore. And like that to me is actually like, and I'll have moments or like a day where I'm like, I don't fucking care. I don't care about the thing that I asked him to do that didn't get done, or I don't care. And like, there's a way of doing that that's like, okay, whatever, just let yourself not care, for a day. But like falling too deeply into that like indifference, I feel like is really a slippery slope to not caring anymore, right?
I love that you said that because as a couples therapist, as I said, I work individually with lots of women. I love like healing from heartbreak, dating, relationship, all
Yeah.
that is my jam. But I'm also a couples therapist and I help around conflict communication. And just know that when a couple comes in anger, fighting or silence, those patterns don't scare me at all. Even if one partner is indifferent, but the other partner is like fighting, and there's
Mm-hmm.
this like push and pull, that doesn't scare me at all. But what is really scary for me as your couples therapist is when both people come indifference,
Mm. There has to still be
silent
one fighter.
silence, because there's
Yeah.
the relationship is dying.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Mm-hmm.
it feels like if I'm not moving forward, I won't care for a day. I'll just pause, right? Like, which that's okay. A day is fine. But you're like, okay, I'll
Yeah.
just give this a break. Um, I'm fighting so hard and then I'll just pause. But you actually don't pause. If you're not moving forward, you're dying.
Mm-hmm.
That's how relationships are. You can
Mm.
be together at peace. You don't have to be doing the work all the time, right? But it's like, we're moving forward, we're at peace, we're together. That's good. But if you're like, oh, let's just pause this conflict and weeks go by and we're not talking about it,
Mm.
we trick ourselves into being like, oh, this is just right now. We're taking a bit of a pause, right? Really what's happening is you're building resentment. Resentment is actually the number one relationship killer. Resentment is
Mm.
the I asked, I'm not getting it. Now I've stopped asking, but I secretly watch you and see your moves and you're not doing it. But I stopped saying anything because I feel unheard. And it's just,
Yeah.
what is the fucking point?
Mm-hmm.
Then that's like you start dying, the relationship starts dying. And then that's when this move comes in where for women, your creativity stops flowing, your sex drive stops flowing,
Yeah.
your even like your friendships, your zest for life, your energy, and you either become that woman, right? Like again, I could see it in my mom and unhappy and just like, okay, I'll stop caring, which kills yourself and your intuition and your creativity. Or suddenly you just like, okay, I'm done, which
Mm.
was the case for me. I felt that in me. I was like, ugh, tired until, okay, this is not me and I'm getting out of there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh man. It's
So
such
that
a
is a good
ride.
fear.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, good. It's the
You
right
should.
fear. Okay, we're like nearing the endish, but I want to ask, so Gabby, in your human design chart, you have a defined heart center, which is like the smaller of the triangles on the right hand side. And only 20% have the defined heart center. And when a center is defined, it means you have access to energy there. Like it comes from within. And what lives in the heart center is not necessarily love, but actually willpower and self worth. And I actually just want to tap on the self worth piece because I've coached and done so many human design readings for women who a lot of them have this center open. So it's almost easy enough to say, like, so this technically means your self-worth isn't there. Like it doesn't come from within. And it's not to say you have to access it like from outside of you, but kind of like you have to teach yourself self-worth, you know, like you have to bring it in yourself. And often it's like doing those things that like accessing willpower or finding the willpower to do the thing and then being like holy shit I did the thing and like really being your own like internal kind of cheerleader. But so I'm curious like your relationship with self-worth, because even women I've interviewed who have access to it technically according to their human design chart don't always feel that way. And especially as an entrepreneur, when it comes to like your pricing or giving away stuff for free, that can be a challenge. So I'm just curious about like for you personally, and then just briefly on like self-worth. Is that something that you bring in, especially like you said, when you're coaching, maybe specifically women, but like probably men too, right? Is like
Yeah.
all of us are kind of lacking in that. And it's probably a really solid foundation to have before anything else.
Yeah. So I do have access to it, is what you're saying
Yeah.
in my chart. Okay, that's good.
And people almost don't want to
Yeah.
admit it sometimes, like yeah I'm worthy as fuck, like, and it takes a lot of work to get there to say that, and we can say it, and sometimes I feel that and I'll say it, but like it still feels like ooh, people are gonna think I'm
Yeah. Oh
cocky
no, I
or
love and again in the last 2 years I've embraced the celebrating and
mm,
bragging but it's been a long journey. So I feel that I have always had solid self-worth thanks to upbringing, right? Because I couldn't take credit unless I had healthy parents
mm,
around that.
mm-hmm,
But I've always felt strong and brave
mm,
in the sense that I defend myself. I've always felt that.
mm,
Um, and I would have weird patterns around speaking up. Like you said, the speaking up for me is the biggest thing around my self-worth, especially around relationships, but within myself, owning my needs, that is what has been the trickiest for me.
mm,
And what the thing that I was missing is I always felt special as a child, which is weird to say, but I was kind of intuitive, like yoga made sense for me. Now I can see it.
yeah,
I always felt like I had a special light.
mm-hmm.
And I don't know where that
Good,
comes
that's
from.
amazing. More people, kids should feel that way.
But I didn't get that reflected back to me.
Mm,
Like my parents were really academic. They were proud of my accomplishments, like, oh yeah, you got a good grade, you should, kind
yeah,
of thing. So it's
right,
always like I was like, okay,
is
I'm doing what is
expected.
expected,
Mm-hmm,
right? And they're very high achievers. So I was also a high achiever. I had a lot of stress over work, money, like
mm-hmm,
all the career corporate climbing, that's where it came from.
mm,
So I feel that I had a hard time embracing the self-worth and the celebrating
mm.
until about 3 years ago that I started, okay, I'm healing the sisterhood wound also of like bringing people into my circle that see my gifts and see my energy and have been like, oh, I love your energy and I love
Mm,
what you do and I also resonate. That's been really healing for me to re-believe the, oh, this light is here.
yeah,
Right.
yeah,
um so the self-worth piece, I guess is it has been strong in the sense that I have not ever felt like I just let people take advantage of me, right?
yeah,
But it has been a journey over reclaiming the light which now is more present. So maybe now I'm
Right.
doing it more consciously,
Yeah.
but in business specifically, as you asked, that has been my biggest piece. So
Mm.
I feel like one of my gifts, and also I've learned it so much, is navigating relationships, romantic. Then I tried to bring it into my friendships. Then I started working on my family wounds. And that is like, it's still so much, but I'm healing it. And
Mm.
then business is where I noticed I was overworking, undercharging for sure.
Mm.
I had a bit of ageism in the sense that I was 30 and a couples counselor seeing couples in Greenwich who are like 50 years old and have
Right.
been married for 20 and I never got judgment. Like I had a few people tell me like, "Oh, you look young. How old are
Yeah.
you? Do you have children? Are you married?" Those kinds
Yeah.
of questions, right? But I never got any like covert
Mm-hmm.
criticism. I had it within myself,
Yeah.
and I think it came from my dad and like also people like my colleagues, and the therapy world is very much like you have to be working for about 20 years to have
Mm.
high
To be taken
prices and
seriously.
recognition, right? So it's
Yeah.
like the coaching world has also helped me heal a lot of that, because
Mm.
I love that the coaching world just embraces where you are and the transformation that you
Yeah.
offer. And of course, like you should have the expertise and over
Of
deliver,
course. But
but
find your
it's like
person, find your coach. Like I talk
exactly.
about that a lot.
And do your
Some,
research. Like,
yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah,
so
for
now
sure.
I place like my resume on my page. I do have that part of me that feels like, here are my accomplishments. Like,
Right.
I am trying to tone it back so I don't over explain because
Mm.
I do find myself sometimes like, oh, but I'm a therapist and I'm certified and this and that. So that
Mm.
I try convincing people, which
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to tone back as I've had a bit of business coaching over like, it's so clear what you do, right?
Yeah.
You being in the energy of what you do is actually the thing that pulls
Right.
people in versus
Right.
like your professional persona.
Yes,
So this is a good
totally.
moment. Like if you see my Instagram, I still feel there's this in between of like the professional persona plus what I'm creating now. And I know that it'll change.
Yeah.
But this year, financial empowerment feels like the biggest piece of the self-worth puzzle,
Mm.
because I realized that my partner and I have leadership over different areas, which is really great compatibility. It feels great for me, but he was a person doing our finances and our structure and
Mm-hmm.
our investments. And I'm the person who's leading in love and emotions and communication, which
Yeah.
he now totally leans in. He's
Mm-hmm.
now on the dance floor with me there. So I realized like, oh, he actually came to meet me in relationship and I'm
Mm.
still not on the dance
Right.
floor of finances. And he always shared with me, like, it's not like he manages it on his
Yeah.
own. Like, he shares it with me. And I was the one that was like,
No
I don't
thanks.
know what that means. This is
Yeah.
boring to me. And so this year, I started working with a financial coach. Her name is Sandra
Cool.
Joe, and she's amazing. I started tracking my income better. I started looking at my expenses better because I did, but it was like kind of like avoidant
Yeah.
because money is intimidating. I started working on my money blocks. I started believing more in the worth of my transformation, untying it from my self-worth, which is not the same
Mm.
thing.
Mm-hmm.
Claiming more of what I do so that I can have more aligned clients, so that I believe in the worth of my transformation versus serving everyone as I was before with
Yeah.
couples. And because that's, again, I'm kind of unlearning the therapy world of like, oh, whatever I get through insurance, right? Now
Right.
I'm actually private pay. I work with specific people. This is the people that I can help because I know that I can get you the results.
Yes.
So it feels like this is a good question to ask, because I'm like in the in between
Yeah.
over financial empowerment is the thing I'm working on. I still got a lot to go.
Yeah.
But it's actually really, it is really empowering to see
Yeah.
that practical and the money and the time as part of the same importance as like your morning practice and your yoga, because I get to be sometimes I am that person who's like, let me do the yoga and
Yeah.
life will be good,
That's
and then
perfect.
I'm
Yeah.
missing the structure. Yeah.
I feel like anything we feel intimidated by, like finances, or like for me, for example, right now I'm working on my health. So, like cooking and nutrition and just even ingredient lists and stuff like that is like, and my friend who's helping coach me through this is like, empower yourself with knowledge, right? And that's really what it gets to be. It's the same with finances. And it's really easy. I'm the same with finance where I'm like, I don't want to know. And even when I've tried to be proactive and taking a course on money or whatever, and I'm like, still no. Like, but I know I'll get there. And I know like we can only do so much at a certain time and we have to like prioritize kind of like what the focus is right now or, so anyways, Gabby, once again, I feel like we could have gone on forever. At the start, I was like, we'll keep it shorter, The next thing you know, I'm like, I still want to talk about 10 more things, but I honor everyone's time so much. I'm so grateful for you to be here and for anyone listening. And I just want to ask a couple of little questions. So, what makes you feel most aligned?
I feel most aligned when I make time to be with myself.
Mm,
And not just by myself, right? But being with me, taking myself to my space of my morning routine or my evening routine, or taking myself on a coffee date or a dinner date, and just like being more present with what I'm feeling, what's coming up,
mm,
having some time to clear. Because I do a lot of energy and talking, and I love that. But suddenly it's like I lost me.
yeah,
And then I have some time with myself and I'm like, oh, there she is. Here
there.
I am.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's perfect. It's on theme with my theme for this week, which is self-love. But
Mhm.
I also heard in a podcast recently how she put it was having an appointment with your heart. And I really liked that. I can't remember who said it. I'll try to pull that out. But I was like, that, yeah, that's exactly what it is, right? Is like, or whatever you want to connect with. But the heart is such a good one. And then the other question is, what does not belong to you, Gabby?
As in I'm letting go of.
Yeah.
Hmm. What does not belong to me is guilt.
Mm,
Guilt is an emotion that has been really present in my mom's family, like intergenerational trauma. And I used to feel a lot of guilt when I don't follow other people's expectations.
hmm.
And now I've had to pave my way as a cycle breaker. Like I didn't live by the status quo of my family at all. Like I left, we didn't get married, we moved around, like all
Yeah.
this. So I haven't held back on doing what I want to do by my own design, but I have felt guilty and have a lot of charge over that. So what does not belong to me is that carrying the guilt, and I'm
Mm,
learning to let go of other people's opinions and expectations, and like only taking the ones that I'm in relationship with,
yeah.
right?
Yeah. Wonderful. Guilt is such a heavy burden that's like so unnecessary. It's like
Yeah.
worry, right? It's like, what are you doing here? You don't
Yeah,
help
it's
my life at all,
yucky.
actually.
It's like, what is beneath the guilt? If it's fear, let me deal with that fear.
Yeah,
If it's
exactly.
sadness, let me deal with that.
Yeah.
That is the emotion we have to deal with. But the
Yeah.
guilt is just this murky, like
Yeah.
yucky
Like you said
energy that
before,
is,
gray area that's like, yeah.
yeah,
Okay, so how can people work with you? I'm going to share your info in the show notes, but are
yeah.
you taking new clients right now?
I do have space for new clients. I would love to chat. I have space for individual therapy or individual relationship coaching around anything from communication, emotional healing to dating relationships, healing
Mm,
from heartbreak, for women. And then I also have couple support. So I have the weekly therapy sessions or any kind of immersive relationship support. Sometimes this crisis management, like you
yes.
said. So I sometimes get couples who have like a specific issue and we
Yeah.
do 1 to 3 sessions. Or I have these people who work with me for 4 to 6 months and we get to the root of everything. So I offer a free call so that we can chat, answer any questions
Make
you
sure it's a
have,
good
see what is
fit.
the best fit for you,
Mm,
tailor relationship support for you, or have one of those customized. The best way to reach out is either you can link my website. I have the link for the
yeah.
free call right there. So it's automized. And then I also can chat on Instagram. I feel like I'm people centric. So you
Yeah.
can reach out and hear my voice and see, and then I can guide you through what the process.
Amazing. Wonderful. I highly recommend connecting with you. So thank you so much again for being here. And thank you everyone for listening. And we will see you next time. Bye, everyone.